Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Nick Greenfield, Head of Tour Operator Relations here at ETOA, and welcome to the latest in our series of webinars. And the hot topic at the moment seems to be the Brexit. Today, we'll be looking at China and the UK in a post-Brexit world. Before I hand you over to our experts today, who will be giving a short presentation, a few housekeeping items. Firstly, if you have any problems during this webinar, technological or trying to get through, you can use the chat function at the bottom of your screen and our technician here will help you. Secondly, you have the option to ask questions during the presentation. After the 15-20-minute presentation, there will be a chance for some Q&A, which I'll be moderating. And thirdly, we will have during this event as well some polls, and we're actually going to start with a poll at the beginning of the session today, which would be, what do you think the impact of Brexit would be on the Chinese market? Okay, so without any further ado, I'd like to hand over to our two experts today. They are Professor Wolfgang Arlt and Daniel Meesak of COTRI, and they're going to take us through this thorny, interesting, and very important issue. I'll pass over to you now.
Thank you very much. So also a very warm welcome from me from Hamburg, Germany. My name is Professor Dr. Wolfgang Georg Arlt, and I'm the director of the China Outbound Tourism Research Institute based in Germany and in China. And so we have been looking at the development of China outbound tourism to many countries, of course, including the UK over a number of years. And as everybody knows, the Chinese are traveling in large numbers and they're spending lots of money while they're traveling. So therefore, everybody's very interested in this market. And so I think, therefore, thank you very much. I think it's a very good idea of ETOA to organize this webinar because in China, of course, also this topic is discussed. And for the tourism industry, the Chinese market is an important market. And so what could be the possible results is, I think, of relevance for many people within our industry. So with this, let me pass over to my colleague, Daniel Meesak, who has been looking very carefully and deeply into this topic. And so he will present to you the some information we have collected and some thoughts about the question, what is the impact of Brexit on the Chinese tourism market towards the UK. So, and I think at the end of the webinar for the Q&A, of course, I must be available. So with this, Daniel, please take over. Thank you very much and enjoy the webinar.
All right, thank you very much. Let me see if I can get this started right away. All right. So let's talk about China and the UK in a post-Brexit world. So the fancy title is Implications and Effects on Sino-UK Tourism and Trade Following a British Exit to the European Union. So I'll be mostly talking about tourism, but I'll also touch on investment and UK-China trade following a potential Brexit. So let's get down to it. Well, let's start with some good news. And I'd like to point out that this is perhaps neither good nor good, but as the UK is anyways not a Schengen country. So in fact, already today, having to deal with British visa is already considered something that is limiting the number of Chinese tourist arrivals to the UK. So for instance, if you want to go to Europe and also to the UK, so say you want to go to France and you want to go to the UK, you will need 2 visas already. Brexit or not, you need 2 visas. One Schengen visa and one UK visa. You cannot be part of the Schengen agreement. And then let's move on to currency. So again, the UK is already only halfway into the EU project. So the UK uses the pound, as you all know. So there wouldn't really be a difference if the UK chose to leave the European Union in parts of currency either. It wouldn't add any complexity. You still have to deal with 2 types of currencies at the very least if you go to both the UK and the EU on a trip as a Chinese tourist. Another good piece of news which I would definitely consider news in this case, is that the UK has already fostered very good relations with China outside of the EU framework. And I mean, it started quite some time ago. Handing over Hong Kong to the Communist Party was a nice gesture. And after that, we also had, of course, the big Chinese state visit to the UK in 2015. So you can see this nice picture over here, Xi Jinping visiting the UK. And aside from some less than nice comments from the Queen that were later publicized, it was also all a very successful visit. Xi Jinping visited Manchester City, get a good look at one of his favorite clubs, etc. So again, start with the good news, and now we're going to head into some more, well, murky territory. So for the bad news, let's begin with the UK-Irish border, which I would say is mostly a matter of confusion and perception. So at the moment, we have something called the British-Irish visa scheme, which allows free travel between both Ireland and the UK at the moment for Chinese nationals and also Indian nationals. And we don't know at the moment what would be the result of the Brexit upon this visa scheme. They would certainly add a lot of confusion to the matter, even if this scheme would stay in place. So if you go to the EU, would you really want to cross the border to the UK, having to do without a visa? It's already a question today, but now also, if we have a Brexit, will you actually want to cross the border from the UK to Ireland? That's the question. And for border checks, it's a very contested topic in the UK, as far as I understand. There's been a lot of talking about soft border checks, hard border checks, and whatever the result is, any type of border check is, from COTRI's perspective, absolutely a deterrent to crossing the border. And this would no doubt be bad news for Ireland in general. So if you decide that you, as a Chinese tourist, you would like to go to the UK, then you're very likely, following Brexit, to just stay in the UK. You don't make it over to Ireland. And I would say it would be particularly bad for Northern Ireland. So Northern Ireland is still in the UK, but as a Chinese tourist, you go to the UK, maybe you land in London, you travel around, you see Scotland, then would you decide to actually hop over to Northern Ireland as well when you're kind of not inclined to cross the Irish border to enter Ireland and then have a Schengen visa? It's a big question mark at the moment, and I would say, since Chinese tourists are risk averse, and I really want to emphasize this, Chinese tourists are risk averse. Security is a big issue. When you have terror attacks, you have plane crashes, anything, Chinese tourists immediately try to stay away. So the confusion regarding the UK-Irish border is definitely going to be a problem, especially for tourism to Ireland and Northern Ireland. So let's continue. Another big topic is, of course, shopping. As Professor Arlt mentioned, Chinese tourists, they represent a lot of expenditure throughout the world. They're huge spenders. We can see it in Japan, for instance, last year. They even had a word for it. They call it explosive shopping, what Chinese tourists do in Japan. So they go to Japan on a tourist trip and they buy everything in sight. So shopping is something you really want to see the Chinese visitors doing in your country. But if we have a situation where when the UK leaves the EU, we're going to have a lot of problems with this, because Chinese tourists are very inclined to buy tax-free goods. I think they're the biggest shoppers of tax-free goods throughout the world, no questions. And well, if the UK actually leaves the EU, we're going to have a situation where if you go to the UK and then you enter the EU, so Ireland, France, whichever Schengen country, EU country you want, you will have to declare what you bought tax-free in the UK, or vice versa. So you come from the EU, you're going to enter the UK, and you bought a lot of tax-free goods in the EU, well, you got to declare it to the UK customs. So if a tourist intending to do a lot of shopping, the only option would be to visit either the UK or the EU. Otherwise, they will risk paying VAT and customs duty. Of course, the option is that you go to both the EU and the UK, but you only buy your tax-free goods, or you do most of your shopping in the last destinations. You will not have to declare double taxes, double VAT, double customs duty. Moreover, I would say that a result of this will be the group tours that include the UK, so to speak, in the middle of the itinerary. They will disappear as they will require multiple entry visas. So I have an example here. You go to Germany first, very nice, you get your first Schengen visa, then head over to France, then you head over to the UK, then you will have to get your UK visa. At the moment, this is still the case. And then you head off to Belgium, which is your second Schengen visa. And at the moment, this is still the same again, but if there's a Brexit, you will have to declare your goods at each of these crossings between the UK and the European Union. So again, in this case, you would be very much inclined to buy all your tax-free goods or most of your shopping in Belgium and then go back to China, rather than to say, buy it in Germany, you had to France, no problem. Then you head to the UK, you had to declare your goods. Then you leave the United Kingdom, go to Belgium, you have to declare again, and then you leave to China. So shopping, tax-free, big issue. And I just want to reiterate that Chinese tourists are risk averse. This is a key point. And any type of instability that will follow the Brexit will, without a doubt, be a deterrent for Chinese tourists. So political instability that might result from a Brexit, I want to speculate too much, but if I have a case where it's a rise of Scottish separatism again, this is of course not very good. This will give Chinese tourists the impression of the UK being not super stable, it's not a safe bet. And of course, the Communist Party is not too keen on promoting a place with a lot of separatism because of issues at home. Another issue I would add on to would be economic instability. So we don't know at the moment, maybe it'll be stable, maybe not, but there's a risk of currency fluctuations, of course, of the British pound if there was to be a Brexit. So if you book your trip, say 3 months in advance, you have a certain currency rate, but it will be hard to predict how this will look when you actually go to the UK. If it will be a good shopping destination or if it will not. So again, risk averse, and with a Brexit, you have at least a lot of perceived risk. And any type of negative perception that might follow Brexit will also be a deterrent for Chinese tourists. So negative press in general. So let's just go to a place where it just works instead of going to the UK and having to deal with these visa issues, customs duty, economic instability. I'm not sure what the British pound is going to be worth when I actually going on my trip. And this, without speculating too much, might also be fueled by the CCP Communist Party agenda. Of course, with political instability, if we have Scottish separatism, this is not something we want to promote. And also, keeping a nice bloc together is a thought the Communist Party really likes. Something else I would like to mention is that it will probably be a case of lesser bilateral relations. So in the case of the US, President Obama controversially pointed out that for the US, the UK will be in the back of the line as far as trade is concerned, behind the EU being a more important market, a bigger market than the UK alone. And this will probably be the same case for China. To China, EU is of course the biggest market, bigger than the US and certainly the UK. So high priority to the EU, whereas the UK will perhaps be in the back of the line, just as President Obama mentioned. So let's move on to investment and trade. So at the moment, there's certainly a lot of property investment in the UK by Chinese investors. And one of the benefits of investing in the UK is, of course, the chance that you can get the so-called Tier 1 investor visa. In the case of Brexit, however, this type of visa would only make you a UK citizen, not an EU citizen. So it'll give you less flexibility. That's where you can move, where you can establish your business, where you can stay for a long period of time. And another case is that the Brexit makes the UK a riskier investment. And one of the main reasons you would like to, as a Chinese person, to invest abroad in a property market abroad is to get away from risk in the first place. So China is a risky property market at the moment, you like to take your money, invest somewhere less risky. And the UK following Brexit might be perceived as a risky place to invest your money. And this a bit more controversial perhaps, and I apologize if I offend anybody, but I want to point out that the UK once had its own island colony in the Greater China region. And China may have an interest in establishing their own so-called trading post in Europe. So it's kind of this Aston Villa phenomenon. So it didn't go that well for Aston Villa. And as it happened, a Chinese company seized the opportunity when Aston Villa was not doing so well to acquire it, or so it looks at the moment. So we might actually have a case as well that if prices in the UK go down, China may seize this opportunity to buy into the UK at a discount compared to the prices for properties, companies, etc. that we have today in this potentially turbulent period that can follow Brexit. It also may put China in a good position to negotiate trade and policy with the UK. UK, in the case of at least the EU, will of course have a reason to find a solution to the so-called Brexit problem. So if you have lesser relations with EU and the US, perhaps it puts China in a good position to negotiate trade, negotiate policy with the UK with more leverage than it had before. I would say these are the main points I would like to point out. So let's perhaps move on to a Q&A session.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Daniel. Very interesting, quite a few thought-provoking pieces there. Ladies and gentlemen, you can actually ask your questions now. At the top of your screen, you'll see the little icon Q&A. Click on there and type away. Daniel, before we get any questions in, I've got a couple for myself. Firstly, and for Wolfgang as well, who's obviously still there. Firstly, what's really striking about our poll is that the poll we just did, when people are asked, what do you think would be the impact of a Brexit on Chinese tourism to the UK, 21% said positive, interestingly, 32% thought it would make no difference, but 47%, so almost half, thought that it would be negative. And yet, when we asked the same...
It would appear we have some issues with the connection. Can you hear me all right?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Sorry, there was a little thing. Ladies and gentlemen, never work with animals, children, or technology. There we go. What do you think would be the impact of a Brexit on Chinese investment in the UK? 63% thought it would make no difference, 32% thought it would be less, and 5% more. So I'm wondering whether you could expand a little bit on the idea that perhaps the actual effect on investment is not really the issue here. It's actually specifically on tourism. And perhaps the image of the UK?
Yes, I mean, if we see a situation where prices in the UK go down, it will look quite appealing to Chinese investors, perhaps to get nice UK property, get nice UK companies at a discount following a turbulent period, which will result in low prices. Mm-hmm. This might not be very good for the UK, selling your assets at a discount compared to what you have today, but to Chinese investors, might make the UK look like a more interesting place to invest in. It's suddenly cheaper than it was before. But this is for companies, this is for perhaps governments, but for individuals, the UK will without a doubt be a less interesting place to visit. It will be a more difficult place to visit. The Brexit will put some limits to what you can do, how group tours can be organized. And for shoppers, it is certainly a problem. So you have a situation where you either will choose to go to the UK or the EU, or just doing your shopping in one or two places if you decide to go for both.
So can you just underline something you said there, which might be a surprise to some people, because some people will surely say, look, we're not part of Schengen and we're not part of the Euro, so nothing changes there anyway. So why would that make particularly a difference to Chinese consumers coming to Europe in general? We know at the moment that the fact that we're in a different visa scheme means they often have to do an either-or sort of decision, and that a lot of people decide either to come to the UK and, as you rightly say, Ireland, that's another topic, or alternatively they're in the Schengen area, and of course some people do both, applying for both visas. So why exactly do you feel that would make a massive difference? Do you just think that people would feel that somehow, even if it wasn't the truth, we know that perception is all important, that this was just a perception that the UK was somehow more off limits, was no longer really part of Europe. Is there a danger of that, do you think? Or
there's definitely a danger of perception. So again, Chinese tourists being risk averse, if your perception is this is a bit complicated situation, you have heard some things about the Brexit and it doesn't sound too good to you, you may be less inclined to go to the UK. But as far as shopping is concerned, Professor Arlt is joining me again to my left.
Yes. Hi.
But it's more about shoppers in this case.
Yeah, and maybe one point I can add is, of course, one part of the UK is called the Northern Ireland. And for Ireland, as Daniel has pointed out, this will be a very difficult situation if Northern Ireland has a external, or the Republic of Ireland has external border towards a non-EU country. So Chinese people going to Belfast to visit the Titanic Museum will certainly have much bigger problem then. They have to pass through border controls, and they cannot bring stuff they bought in Dublin for a trip to Belfast because they will go out of the European Union and they have to go through all the normal custom procedures. So likely to happen. So this is, I think, for this is certainly the part of the UK, as far as I can see, which will suffer the most. But in general, I think, as Daniel has pointed out, this is a perception of a unclear situation, and this is something certainly Chinese tourists they want adventure, but they don't want risk, so they want to be safe, and this will certainly be not be a positive factor, to be sure.
So a little bit like the voters here, uncertainty is a major issue. We have a question here from Sandra. She's asking, what are the implications for British luxury brands with regards to double taxation as travellers cross EU borders post-Brexit? Luxury UK is hugely dependent on wealthy Chinese patronage. And I think this is probably very pertinent at the moment with the whole issue going around Burberry, for example, and noticing the dependence that we have here in this country on the Chinese retailer. Could one of you maybe answer that?
Well, so Chinese shoppers are, of course, the biggest market of all for luxury companies, but they buy most of their luxury products outside of China. And, well, this will definitely influence where they will buy them during their trips in Europe. So again, you'll be very much inclined to buy your expensive goods at your last destination if you go to both the UK and the EU. And luxury spending is, of course, correlated with the amount of Chinese tourists you get as well. So if you have less Chinese tourists going to the UK after Brexit, then you're very likely to have less Chinese luxury shoppers as well.
I mean, so you're saying there's a danger that they'll simply do their luxury shopping on the continent, so to speak, within the EU and not be doing it here anymore?
Yeah, I mean, if they're only going to the UK in the first place, then it will not really make a big difference. Mm. But if it's a Europe tour, they go to different destinations throughout Europe, then indeed they are less likely to buy their luxury products in the UK, especially if it's not the last destination. If it's the last destination, it doesn't make a big difference. If they go to the UK from the EU, they do luxury shopping in the UK and go straight back to China, then they will not have a problem with paying VAT and customs duty if they cross back to the EU.
And again, if I may add, don't forget, not all the Chinese live in China. So we always tend to think that all the Chinese you see in Harrods or in the retail outlet cities in Bicester they are Chinese, so they come straight from Shanghai. That is not the case. So there are a lot of Chinese people living in continental Europe, coming to London for shopping, and so this customer group certainly will have big problems if they are going out of the European Union, and when they bring stuff back into the European Union, they have to pay custom fee for all their shopping. So this will certainly kill this part of the market, which is often overlooked, because we think of the Chinese tourists are all people coming from China, but you have, of course, in the UK, a lot of Chinese students, but also in continental Europe, there are probably 100,000 or more Chinese students traveling a lot and traveling sometimes with their parents. And you have expats working for Chinese banks, for Chinese import-export companies, Chinese shipping companies. And these guys travel a lot and buy a lot. And many of them are based in Paris or even here in Hamburg, where we are located at the harbor.
Okay, we have another question here from Andreas. He apologizes, he missed the very start of the webinar, and he said perhaps we mentioned, I don't think we did, but do you know how the UK currently ranks compared to other European countries in terms of visits per year by Chinese tourists? I guess they're asking, could you kind of set just a minute where the UK is at the moment in the European scheme of things?
I think UK is a typical destination where there is a lot more potential because it's not part of Schengen. So again, this not being part of Schengen has always been a deterrent to Chinese tourists for going to the UK when it is the EU. But it's, of course, still an important destination in Europe.
Yeah, so if
we're within the top 10, no?
If you look at the numbers, we can see that still France and Germany and Italy are the three biggest markets. But UK, well, in the last couple of years, had a positive development and is catching up. And if you look at the overnights, the picture is much better because as it is more difficult to come to the British Isles, geography-wise, but also visa issues and so on. So they tend to stay a bit longer. So in Germany and Italy, the average stay is 2 nights. And in the UK, it is rather 5 or 6 nights. So therefore, if you look at the number of nights and the number of days, which can be used for spending money and for shopping, so the UK is one of the among the top 5 in the European market, to be sure. And is, as Daniel just said, there are still a lot of people when they come first time to Europe, they don't go to the UK. They go to Western Europe. So that is for a lot of the repeat visitors, which get more and more because every year you have more people who have already had some experience in traveling. So it is the UK is as a second or third visit to Europe destination, still having the potential to get much more customers and visitors than they have now.
Okay, we've got a nice spicy point here from Kerry. He recognises that you're both obviously good pro-Europeans, but he's questioning whether you're really saying France is a safer place than the UK at the moment with the immigration influx. And he's also saying when exchange rate moves against the UK, we still get the same amount in sterling. It just means Chinese spend less RMB. And there is also a joint visa application already between the UK and Ireland, so no difference. So I guess what he's challenging is the idea that really so much will actually change within the UK, particularly that the conditions will stay very much the same. The visa thing is in place already, and obviously the concerns about security and immigration on mainland Europe, and obviously particularly security in France, actually could play to our advantage. And actually, along those notes as well, I had someone suggest to me at one of these events that actually the UK going alone, in inverted commas, could make us almost seem a more attractive and exotic destination. And people would be curious to see what this place was that was standing up once again, a new UK. How do you react to that?
Well, first of all, I just, sorry for being boring, but emphasizing the fact it's a lot about perception. So even if everything is wonderful after Brexit, nothing really changes. If the perception in China is that this is a tricky situation, how will I deal with my visas and everything? If that's a perception, it will still harm tourism to the UK.
Yeah, I think it is. Of course, we don't have a bowl to look into, a glass bowl to know about the future. But I would rather say I can't see that much positive developments, and to make the UK more exotic. Well, I don't know if this is really an argument because, fortunately, the Chinese have a quite clear idea about United Kingdom already. So I think there's not much exotism in that case. So I think that if it would happen, and if Britain is lucky, then nothing would much change. But I think there is a good chance that it goes down, and I can see very little reason why it should go up because of the Brexit. And but of course, this is connected to the bigger issues. So will that be the end of the UK? Will Scotland run away or not? So all this, of course, is connected. So tourism is always at the receiving end of the political developments. So it is. I think it's not only the tourist experience. It is also, of course, the question: what will be the bigger issues? And as Daniel said, of course, if you get more sterlings for your renminbi, that will be an argument to go to Britain if things get cheaper. But if this is so positive for the UK, that's another question.
So this is what we just were asked also by one of the other people watching the webinar. Would a weaker pound not drive more tourism? But your argument might be that short term, yes, medium term, yes, but what would be the other effects potentially? So, okay. Well, we've arrived now. I'm afraid we're out of time to the end of our webinar. First, I'd like to thank personally and also on behalf of ETOA, Daniel and Wolfgang for some very interesting insights and a very interesting presentation. This presentation will be available anon. We've been recording it, and we look forward to seeing you at future webinars and for seeing many of you also at City Fair, which takes place on the 20th of June here in central London. Thank you once again, and see you soon. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Bye.